Hey everyone, Brandon here, and for today's video, we're going to be going over Bloodrunes by Zoracle Games. This video is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. We did purchase this game on our own, but we just wanted to do a quick video on it. For this video, I'll be going over an overview of the game itself, followed by showing the different components of the game. From there, I will show you how to set up the game for your first play, as well as a couple of rounds for a playthrough, so that way you can see how the game is played. Last but not least, I will be giving my final opinion on the game. But first things first is the overview. Once again, Bloodrunes by Zoracle Games, was created, designed, published, and even distributed by Zach Turner. We had the privilege of being able to play, not only learn the game, but play a few rounds with Zach at our local game store whenever he came to showcase the game. That is one of my favorite parts about the board game community, going to conventions and such, is meeting the designers of the game, seeing what lessons they learned, how they intend to apply those lessons learned to their next project they're going to do, and just the overall story that they tell of their journey through making board games. This game is about how in the lands there's now a vacuum of power. You're going to be playing as one of the 4 clans, trying to put your foothold into that place of power. This game is played to 4 players, and each play is going to last about an hour. One thing we noticed between 2 and 3 players is there's really not much variance in how much the game changes based off of player count. There is some things that will be affected, of course, as with most games, but it's not like some games where whenever you drop down to that 2-player game, you're absolutely forced to play it a very specific way to win, or you're just going to be shooting yourself in the foot. This game overall is a pattern building game. You are taking runes and placing them in specific configurations, so that way you can then cast spells to do a few actions to include building blood fortunes. But that's it for the overview. Now we can get into the components of the game itself. Now for components, as we unbox this game, the first thing that we're going to place out is our casting table. This is a neoprene mat, unstitched edging, but still, for how cheap the game is, it was a nice addition. With this, you do have your 5 slots that you can play runes throughout the game, even if there's already a rune there. Apart from that, you do have your rune cards. Just like your spell cards, they are a decent thickness. The size kind of gets to me for some reason, but it makes sense with the styling of the game. Over here, you have your spell cards, and you do have different kinds of spells. You do have build, which is allowing you to build either blood fortunes or acolytes. Raiding, which depending on the text and the direction of the sword, as well as the little icon at the bottom, allows you to either steal an acolyte or a blood fortune from the player to your left, right, or even across from you. You also have ward, which helps protect you from raids, as well as hexes, which helps you get rid of those wards that other players may have. Now, what are blood fortunes and what are acolytes? Every clan will not only come with its own player board, with its leader to the right, acolyte side at the bottom, and blood fortune pool area at the top. It'll also come with at least 6 acolytes, your red clan being the one clan that's different because it comes with 7. But that's used in a different variant mode that you can play this game in. It also includes 6 blood fortunes in colors that match your player board itself. Like I said, you get your 4 player mats, your neoprene board, your 2 stacks of cards, as well as your small stack of acolytes and blood fortunes. And that's really all that comes into this game other than your normal rulebook and player aids. So it is really easy to set up the game, and that's what we'll be going over next. Now that we're able to showcase the components, now we can go over how to set up for your first play. Now for this video, I do have the up camera kind of zoomed in on mainly the casting table and my player board, but just note all the other player boards are set up the same as the one I'm showing you now. The only difference is you do want to make sure that you have enough space along the casting mat to be able to have your 2 rivers. So I place this in the middle. I'm going to flip over 3 of my rune cards. And that is going to be my river area for the rest of this game. Now on top of those 3, you're also going to deal 5 runes to each player. And you're going to place 1 rune in the center tableau of the casting mat. Now over here is my spell river. I'm going to flip over the top 3 cards. And this is the pool I can pull from if I'm wanting to take a spell card for one of my actions. Now that we have the river set up and the casting mat set up, now we can move on to the player board itself. As you see, I don't have any of my blood fortunes laid out just yet. Those, as well as 3 of my acolytes, are going to go off to the side to be added later depending on what actions I'm taking during my turns. Down here I have my 3 acolytes that I do start off with. They're going to start off on the bottom row to show they've not been activated yet, and I'll get more into that whenever we go over our playthrough. And that is pretty much it for how to set up the game. This game is very easy to not only set up, but it's easy to teach, and honestly, it's a fairly easy game to play a few rounds in and not get too tired of it. So now we have the game set up and we're ready for our first couple of rounds. Now, let's go over some of the key terms about this. Whenever it comes to rune cards, you can have as many of those in your hand as you want, but these are going to stay face down or you're going to keep them hidden from the other players. Spell cards, on the other hand, you can only have a max of 6 at a time, and they will be played face up. Now, once you cast that spell, it no longer counts against your limit of 6 cards. The tricky part about that, though, is you cannot discard spells. Once you take it and you place it into your own pool, it is there until you cast it. So now I have my 5 rune cards. I have my main casting mat set up, and I have the 3 spells I can kind of maybe pull from. So how do I get that done? I'm going to look at my acolytes, and that's going to be how many actions I get per turn. You have a variety of actions, but each action only costs 1 acolyte. So for my actions, I can choose to either pick a rune card up that's shown face up on the river. I can pick up a spell card. Additionally, I can play an action to play a rune card or cast a spell card that I already have in my pool. Now the final 2 actions I could take is, let's say I don't like anything that's in the spell river or the rune river, I can spend 1 action to wipe out one of those areas. So for this first action, I'm going to move my first acolyte up and exhaust it in a sense, and I'm going to choose to reset my spell river. So I'm going to take these 3 cards, I'm going to discard them, and then I'm going to flip the next 3 and hope for maybe something else that I'd prefer. Now I'm going to spend my second acolyte to take a build action, and as you take a card, you'll make sure to flip another card to where there's always 3 face up. Now I'm going to spend my third acolyte to place one of my runes. One thing you want to be mindful of, if you do not have enough acolytes to play all your runes and match the pattern required by your spell card, you may not be able to cast that spell the next turn because this is a dynamic board. Each player, as the round goes on, can decide to play their own runes, and they can even play runes on top of your runes. So it's something you do want to be mindful of as you're strategizing on what you're going to do each round. But for the simplicity's sake, we're going to act like nobody else added runes. They just drew cards or other runes. And then it gets back to my turn, and my 3 acolytes are reset. So if I'm looking at my build card, I need this in both areas. So one thing I can do is I can play 1 acolyte to draw a rune card. Play my 2nd acolyte to play a rune card. And then play my 3rd to cast my spell. Now this one's a build. It says to recruit 1 acolyte from your destiny pool. And what that'll look like is I take one of my acolytes and I put it at the bottom row of my player board. Now that means I now have another action I can take. I'm going to go ahead and use that 4th acolyte to take that other build card. As the game progresses, you may see cards like this where instead of building acolytes, you are building fortunes. And the game ends once you have your blood fortune area filled up. Now, the key fact about this is it doesn't have to be filled up with just your blood fortunes. You can play a variety of ways, focusing on building, focusing on raiding. But once you fill up all 6 blood fortunes, the game ends and you are declared the winner. Now, last but not least is my final thoughts on the game. As I mentioned earlier, I do appreciate how even whenever you knock it down to just 2 players playing the game, it doesn't drastically change the game to where you have to play a specific way to win. We have played some games in the past before where once you do go to that lower player count, it softens the game up to where you have to play it this way or you don't win at all. No ifs, ands, or buts. So this was definitely appreciated that we could play in multiple different styles, and there's only a couple of things that change. Another thing that I thought added an interesting twist to the game was the rarity of the runes themselves. If you're to look at the player aid, including the rune card itself, you'll notice not only you'll have a symbol in the top left corner, but just the way the grain on the rune card itself looks determines its rarity. Some runes, you may have 20 of that same rune in this draw pile, and some of them you're only going to have 5 to include the Loki rune, which is treated as a wild for not only you, but for the other players around. Another thing that I found very interesting, on top of the dynamic game mat that's constantly changing, is the orientation. As I said before, how I look at the board and how I need to place my rune cards is going to be different than how my players to my left and right are going to be looking at it. Now, a key fact about that is the orientation of the rune card itself. Whether it's facing you, facing to your left or right, that does not matter. All that matters is which home that rune card is placed in that configuration of 5 homes, in a sense. On top of that, the quality of the components, the quality of the gameplay, even without the expansion that we tested out, is surprising for how cheap of a game it was compared to especially some of the games released as of lately. So I do enjoy playing this. I am going to continue playing it, and I am looking forward to the expansion that's going to be coming out, hopefully within the next couple of years. But that's it for my video on Bloodrunes. Would this be a game you'd be wanting to add to your table? Take it easy. Bye.